In the last episode, Foyle's anonymity was lost as each of his major enemies in turn discovered in different ways that he is the one they know as Fourmyle. Meanwhile, Foyle continued his hunt for Rodger Kempsey, his last clue to what happened on board the Vorga. Foyle found him at a bacteria farm on the moon in terribly squalid conditions. Kempsey was holed up inside the barrack washroom in a very sorry state, moaning to himself and barely responsive to Foyle. Foyle led Kempsey to believe that he had been sent by Sofiya Orel to procure Kempsey's release and take him someplace better. Encouraged by this, Kempsey came with Foyle to his yawl. Once on board, Foyle knocked out Kempsey, took him to a stateroom he had prepared, and surgically removed his heart, keeping him alive by machine. This bypassed the induced sympathetic block that would have killed Kempsey if he spoke about the Vorga, as already happened to the two other witnesses Foyle had questioned. Foyle was then able to get some answers. He found out that the Vorga had indeed been carrying refugees. He found out that instead of delivering them, they had taken their belongings and ejected all of them into space. It was this act that drove Kempsey into his psychosis. He found out that the person who gave the order to do this, the same person who gave the order to ignore his distress signals, was the captain of the Vorga, Lindsay Joyce. And he found out that Joyce was now in the Skopsy colony on Mars. Foyle was shocked at this turn of events. He was livid that he would not be able to take revenge on Joyce, as a Skopsy, would feel no torture nor be able to hear anything Foyle had to say. In response to Kempsey's pleading for death, Foyle refused to end his life. Foyle, in his anger and frustration, told Kempsey he'd keep him alive to suffer forever if he could. Just then, the Burning Man reappeared outside the ship, looking inside through a porthole. By the time Foyle moved to a better vantage point, the Burning Man had disappeared. Foyle convinced himself that this was a guardian angel or a good luck sign, and left immediately for Mars to find Lindsay Joyce. However, in so doing, the acceleration of the ship killed Kempsey. For the first time, Foyle found himself repulsed by his own cruelty. Despite trying to steel himself against this new experience of shame, he was compelled to avert his eyes as he disposed of Kempsey's body. Will Foyle find a way to exact revenge despite Joyce being in a sensory-deprived condition? Will Foyle be able to outrun his pursuers now that they know who he is? Will time finally run out for Foyle? Find out in episode 14 of The Stars, My Destination by Alfred Bester.
All persons known to be in the employ of Fourmyle of Ceres or associated with him in any capacity to be held for questioning. Yang Yovel, Central Intelligence.
All employees of this company to maintain strict watch for one Fourmyle of Ceres and report at once to local Mr. Prestane.
All couriers will abandon present assignments and report for reassignment to Foyle case, Dagenham.
A bank holiday will be declared immediately in the name of the war crisis to cut Fourmyle off from all funds. Yang Yovel, Central Intelligence.
Anyone making inquiries regarding SS Vorga to be taken to Castle Prestane for examination. Prestane.
All ports and fields in inner planets to be alerted for arrival of Fourmyle. Quarantine and customs to check all landings. Yang Yovel, Central Intelligence.
Old St. Patrick's to be searched and watched. Dagenham.
Files of Bonus and Uig to be checked for names of officers and men of Vorga to anticipate, if possible, Fourmyle's next move. Prestane.
War Crimes Commission to make up list of public enemies giving Fourmyle #1 spot. Yang Yovel, Central Intelligence.
1 million reward offered for information leading to apprehension of Fourmyle of Ceres, alias Gulliver Foyle, alias Gully Foyle, now at large in the inner planets. Priority 1, Pristane.
After 2 centuries of colonization, the air struggle on Mars was still so critical that the VL law, the vegetative lynch law, was still in effect. It was a killing offense to endanger or destroy any plant vital to the transformation of Mars' carbon dioxide atmosphere into an oxygen atmosphere. Even blades of grass were sacred. There was no need to erect keep off the grass neons. The man who wandered off a path onto a lawn would be instantly shot. The woman who picked a flower would be killed without mercy. 2 centuries of sudden death had inspired a reverence for green growing things that almost amounted to a religion. Foyle remembered this as he raced up the center of the causeway leading to Mont Saint-Michel. He had jaunted direct from the Sirtis airport to the Saint-Michel stage at the foot of the causeway, which stretched for a quarter of a mile through green fields to Mars Saint-Michel. The rest of the distance had to be traversed on foot. Like the original Mont Saint-Michel on the French coast, Mars Saint-Michel was a majestic Gothic cathedral of spires and buttresses looming on a hill and yearning toward the sky. Ocean tides surrounded Mont Saint-Michel on Earth. Green tides of grass surrounded Mars Saint-Michel. Both were fortresses. Mont Saint-Michel had been a fortress of faith before organized religion was abolished. Mars Saint-Michel was a fortress of telepathy. Within it lived Mars' soulful telepath, Sigurd Magsman.
Now these are the defenses protecting Sigurd Magsman. Firstly, the solar system. Secondly, martial law. Thirdly, Dagenham, Prestane and Company. Fourthly, the fortress itself. Fifthly, the uniformed guards, attendants, servants, and admirers of the bearded sage we all know so well, Sigurd Magsman, selling his awesome powers for awesome prices. But there's a sixthly that I know, Sigurd Magsman's Achilles heel, for I've paid 1 million to Sigurd the Third. Or was he the fourth?
He passed through the outer labyrinth of Mont Saint-Michel with his forged credentials and was tempted to bluff or proceed directly by commando action to an audience with the great man himself. But time was pressing and his enemies were closing in, and he could not afford to satisfy his curiosity. Instead, he accelerated, blurred, and found a humble cottage set in a walled garden within the Mont Saint-Michel home farm. It had drab windows and a thatched roof, and might have been mistaken for a stable. Foyle slipped inside. The cottage was a nursery. 3 pleasant nannies sat motionless in rocking chairs, knitting poised in their frozen hands. The blur that was Foyle came up behind them and quietly stung them with ampules. Then he decelerated. He looked at the ancient child, the wizened, shriveled boy who was seated on the floor, playing with electronic trains.
Hello, Sigurd.
The child began to cry.
Cry, baby. What are you afraid of? I'm not gonna hurt you.
You're a bad man with a bad face.
I'm your friend, Sigurd.
No, you're not. You want me to do bad things.
I'm your friend. Look, I know all about those big, hairy men who pretend to be you, but I won't tell. Read me and see.
You're going to hurt him, and you want me to tell him.
Who?
The captain man, the ski Scot.
The child fumbled with the word, wailing louder.
Go away. You're bad. Badness in your head and burning men's and...
Come here, Sigurd.
No. Nani.
Shut up, you little bastard.
Foyle grabbed the 70-year-old child and shook him.
This is going to be a brand new experience for you, Sigurd. The first time you've ever been walloped into anything. Understand?
The ancient child read him and howled.
Shut up. We're going on a trip to the Skopje colony. If you behave yourself and do what you're told, I'll bring you back safe and give you a lolly or whatever the hell they bribe you with. If you don't behave, I'll beat the living daylights out of you.
No, you won't. You won't. I'm Sigurd Magsman. I'm Sigurd the telepath. You wouldn't dare.
Sonny, I'm Gully Foyle, solar enemy number 1. I'm just a step away from the finish of a year-long hunt. I'm risking my neck because I need you to settle accounts with a son of a bitch. Sonny, I'm Gully Foyle. There isn't anything I wouldn't dare.
The telepath began broadcasting terror with such an uproar, the alarm sounded all over Mont Saint-Michel. Foyle took a firm grip on the ancient child, accelerated, and carried him out of the fortress. Then he jaunted.
Urgent. Sigurd Magsman, kidnapped by man tentatively identified as Gulliver Foyle, alias Fourmyle of Ceres, solar enemy number 1. Destination tentatively fixed. Alert Commando Brigade. Inform Central Intelligence. Urgent.
The ancient Skopje sect of White Russia, believing that sex was the root of all evil, practiced an atrocious self-castration to extirpate the root. The modern Skopjes, believing that sensation was the root of all evil, practiced an even more barbaric custom. Having entered the Skopje colony and paid a fortune for the privilege, the initiates submitted joyously to an operation that severed the sensory nervous system and lived out their days without sight, sound, speech, smell, taste, or touch. When they first entered the monastery, the initiates were shown elegant ivory cells in which it was intimated they would spend the remainder of their lives in rapt contemplation, lovingly tended. In actuality, the senseless creatures were packed in catacombs where they sat on rough stone slabs and were fed and exercised once a day. For 23 out of 24 hours, they sat alone in the dark, untended, unguarded, unloved.
The living dead.
Foyle decelerated, put Sigurd Magsman down, and switched on the retinal light in his eyes, trying to pierce the womb gloom. It was midnight above ground. It was permanent midnight down in the catacombs. Sigurd Magsman was broadcasting terror and anguish with such a telepathic bray that Foyle was forced to shake the child again.
Shut up. You can't wake these dead. Now, find me Lindsay Joyce.
They're sick, all sick, like worms in their heads. Worms and sickness and...
Christ, don't I know it. Come on, let's get it over with. There's worse to come.
They went down the twisting labyrinth of the catacombs. The stone slabs shelved the walls from floor to ceiling. The Skopjes, white as slugs, mute as corpses, motionless as Buddhas, filled the caverns with the odor of living death. The telepathic child wept and shrieked. Foyle never relaxed his relentless grip on him. He never relaxed the hunt.
Johnson, Wright, Keeley, Graff, Nastro, Underwood.
Foyle read off the bronze identification plates attached to the slabs.
God, there's thousands here. Reach out, Sigurd. Find Lindsay Joyce for me. We can't go over them name by name. Regal, Cone, Brady, Vincent. What in the...
Foyle started back. One of the bone-white figures had cuffed his brow. It was swaying and writhing, its face twitching. All the white slugs on their shelves were squirming and writhing. Sigurd Magsman's constant telepathic broadcast of anguish and terror was reaching them and torturing them.
Shut up! Stop it! Find Lindsay Joyce and we'll get out of here. Reach out and find him.
Down there, straight down there. 7, 8, 9 shelves down. I want to go home. I'm sick.
Foyle went pell-mell down the catacombs with Sigurd, reading off identification plates until at last he came to Lindsay Joyce, Bougainville, Venus. This was his enemy, the instigator of his death and the deaths of the 600 from Callisto. This was the enemy for whom he had planned vengeance and hunted for months. This was the enemy for whom he had prepared the agony of the port stateroom aboard his yawl. This was Vorga. It was a woman. Foyle was thunderstruck. In these days of the double standard, with women kept in purdah, there were many reported cases of women masquerading as men to enter the worlds closed to them, but he had never yet heard of a woman in the merchant marine masquerading her way to top officer rank.
This is Lindsay Joyce? Lindsay Joyce off the Vorga. Ask her.
I don't know what Vorga is.
Ask her.
But I don't. She gave orders.
Captain?
I don't like what's inside her. It's all sick and dark. It hurts. I want to go home.
Ask her, was she captain of the Vorga?
Yes. Please, don't make me go inside her anymore. It's twisty and hurts. I don't like her.
Tell her I'm the man she wouldn't pick up on September 16, 2436. Tell her it's taken a long time, but I've finally come to settle the account. Tell her I'm going to pay her back.
I don't understand. Don't understand.
Tell her I'm going to kill her. Slow and hard. Tell her I've got a stateroom aboard my yawl, fitted up just like my locker aboard Nomad, where I rotted for 6 months. Where she ordered Vorga to leave me to die. Tell her she's going to rot and die just like me. Tell her.
Foyle shook the wizened child furiously.
Make her feel it. Don't let her get away by turning Skoptsi. Tell her I kill her filthy. Read me and tell her.
Sir, she didn't give that order.
What?
I can't understand her.
She didn't give the order to scuttle me.
I'm afraid to go in.
Go in, you little son of a bitch, or I'll take you apart. What does she mean?
The child wailed. The woman writhed. Foyle fumed.
Go in. Go in. Get it out of her. Jesus Christ, why does the only telepath on Mars have to be a child? Sigurd, listen to me. Ask her. Did she give the order to scuttle the refs?
No.
No, she didn't, or no, you won't.
She didn't.
Did she give the order to pass Nomad by?
She's twisty and sicky. Oh, please. Nanny, I want to go home. Want to go.
Did she give the order to pass Nomad by?
No.
She didn't.
No. Take me home.
Ask her who did.
I want my nanny.
Ask her who could give her an order. She was captain aboard her own ship. Who could command her? Ask her.
I want my nanny.
Ask her.
No. I'm afraid. She's sick. She's dark and black. She's bad. I don't understand her. I want my nanny. I want to go home.
The child was shrieking and shaking. Foyle was shouting. The echoes thundered. As Foyle reached for the child in a rage, his eyes were blinded by brilliant light. The entire catacomb was illuminated by the burning man. Foyle's image stood before him, face hideous, clothes on fire, the blazing eyes fixed on the convulsing Scopsy that had been Lindsay Joyce. The burning man opened his tiger mouth. A grating sound emerged. It was like flaming laughter.
She hurts.
Who are you?
The burning man winced.
Too bright. Less light.
Foyle took a step forward. The burning man clapped hands over his ears in agony.
Too loud. Don't move so loud.
Are you my guardian angel?
You're blinding me. Shh. Listen to her. She's screaming, begging. She doesn't want to die. She doesn't want to be hurt. Listen to her.
Foyle trembled.
She's telling us who gave the order. Can't you hear? Listen with your eyes.
The burning man pointed a taloned finger at the writhing Scopsy.
She says, Olivia.
What?
She says, Olivia. Olivia Prestain. Olivia Prestain. Olivia Prestain.
The burning man vanished. The catacombs were dark again. Colored lights and cacophonies whirled around Foyle. He gasped and staggered.
The Blue Jaunt. Olivia, no. Not. Never. Olivia,
He felt a hand reach for his.
Belle?
He became aware that Sigurd Maxman was holding onto his hand and weeping. He picked the boy up.
I hurt. I hurt.
I hurt too, son.
Want to go home.
I'll take you home.
Still holding the boy in his arms, he blundered through the catacombs.
The living dead. And I've joined them.
He found the stone steps that led up from the depths to the monastery cloister above ground. He trudged up the steps, tasting death and desolation. There was bright light above him, and for a moment he imagined that dawn had come already. Then he realized that the cloister was brilliantly lit with artificial light. There was the tramp of shod feet and the low growl of commands. Halfway up the steps, Foyle stopped and mustered himself.
Sigurd, who's above us? Find out.
Soldiers.
Soldiers? What soldiers?
Commando soldiers.
Sigurd's crumpled face brightened.
They come for me to take me home to Nanny. Here I am. Here I am here.
The telepathic clamor brought a shout from overhead. Foyle accelerated and blurred up the rest of the steps to the cloister. It was a square of Romanesque arches surrounding a green lawn. In the center of the lawn was a giant cedar of Lebanon. The flagged walks swarmed with commando search parties, and Foyle came face to face with his match. For an instant after they saw his blur whip up from the catacombs, they accelerated too, and all were on even terms. But Foyle had the boy. Shooting was impossible. Cradling Sigurd in his arms, he wove through the cloister like a broken field runner hurtling toward a goal. No one dared block him, for at +5 acceleration, a head-on collision between two bodies would be instantly fatal to both. Objectively, this breakneck skirmish looked like a 5-second zigzag of lightning. Foyle broke out of the cloister, went through the main hall of the monastery, passed through the labyrinth, and reached the public jaunt stage outside the main gate. There he stopped, decelerated, and jaunted to the monastery airfield, half a mile distant. The field, too, was ablaze with lights and swarming with commandos. Every anti-grav pit was occupied by a brigade ship. His own yawl was under guard. A fifth of a second after Foyle arrived at the field, the pursuers from the monastery jaunted in. He looked around desperately. He was surrounded by half a regiment of commandos, all under acceleration, all geared for lethal action, all his equal or better. The odds were impossible. And then the outer satellites altered the odds. Exactly 1 week after the saturation raid on Terra, they struck at Mars. Again, the missiles came down on the midnight to dawn quadrant. Again, the heavens twinkled with interceptions and detonations, and the horizon exploded great puffs of light while the ground shook. But this time there was a ghastly variation, for a brilliant nova burst overhead, flooding the night side of the planet with garish light. A swarm of fission heads had struck Mars' tiny satellite, Phobos, instantly vaporizing it into a sunlet. The recognition lag of the commandos to this appalling attack gave Foyle his opportunity. He accelerated again and burst through them to his yawl. He stopped before the main hatch and saw the stunned guard party hesitate between a continuance of the old action and a response to the new. Foyle hurled Sigurd Magsman up into the air like an ancient Scotsman tossing the caber. As the guard party rushed to catch the boy, Foyle dove through them into his yawl, slammed the hatch, and dogged it. Still under acceleration, never pausing to see if anyone was inside the yawl, he shot forward to controls, tripped the release lever, and as the yawl started to float up the anti-grav beam, threw on full 10G propulsion. He was not strapped into the pilot chair. The effect of the 10G drive on his accelerated and unprotected body was monstrous. A creeping force took hold of him and spilled him out of the chair. He inched back toward the rear wall of the control chamber like a sleepwalker. The wall appeared, to his accelerated senses, to approach him. He thrust out both arms, palms flat against the wall to brace himself. The sluggish power thrusting him back split his arms apart and forced him against the wall, gently at first, then harder and harder until face, jaw, chest, and body were crushed against the metal. The mounting pressure became agonizing. He tried to trip the switchboard in his mouth with his tongue, but the propulsion crushing him against the wall made it impossible for him to move his distorted mouth. A burst of explosions, so far down the sound spectrum that they sounded like sodden rock slides, told him that the commando brigade was bombarding him with shots from below. As the yawl tore up into the black blue of outer space, he began to scream in a bat screech before he mercifully lost consciousness. Foyle awoke in darkness. He was decelerated, but the exhaustion of his body told him he had been under acceleration while he had been unconscious. Either his power pack had run out, or he inched a hand to the small of his back. The pack was gone. It had been removed. He explored with trembling fingers. He was in a bed. He listened to the murmur of ventilators and air conditioners and the click and buzz of servo mechanisms. He was aboard a ship. He was strapped to the bed. The ship was in free fall. Foyle unfastened himself, pressed his elbows against the mattress, and floated up. He drifted through the darkness, searching for a light switch or a call button. His hands brushed against a water carafe with raised letters on the glass. He read them with his fingertips. SS, he felt. V, O, R, G, A, Vorga. He cried out. The door of the stateroom opened. A figure drifted through the door, silhouetted against the light of a luxurious private lounge behind it.
This time we picked you up.
Olivia?
Yes.
Then it's true?
Yes, Gully.
Foyle began to cry.
You're still weak. Come and lie down.
She urged him into the lounge and strapped him into a chaise longue. It was still warm from her body.
You've been like this for 6 days. We never thought you'd live. Everything was drained out of you before the surgeon found that battery on your back.
Where is it?
You can have it whenever you want it. Don't fret, my dear.
He looked at her for a long moment, his snow maiden, his beloved ice princess, the white satin skin, the blind coral eyes, and exquisite coral mouth. She touched his moist eyelids with a scented handkerchief.
I love you.
Shh. I know, Gully.
You've known all about me. For how long?
I knew Gully Foyle, the spaceman off the Nomad, was my enemy from the beginning. I never knew you were Fourmyle until we met. Oh, if only I'd known before, how much would have been saved.
You knew, and you've been laughing at me, standing by and shaking with laughter.
Standing by and loving you. No, don't interrupt. I'm trying to be rational, and it's not easy.
A flush cascaded across the marble face.
I'm not playing with you now. I betrayed you to my father. I did. Self-defense, I thought. Now that I've met him, at last I can see he's too dangerous. An hour later, I knew it was a mistake, because I realized I was in love with you. I'm paying for it now. You need never have known.
You expect me to believe that?
She trembled slightly.
Then why am I here? Why did I follow you? That bombing was ghastly. You'd have been dead in another minute when we picked you up. Your yawl was a wreck.
Where are we now?
What difference does it make?
I'm stalling for time.
Time for what?
Not for time. I'm stalling for courage.
We're orbiting Earth.
How did you follow me?
I knew you'd be after Lindsay Joyce. I took over one of my father's ships. It happened to be Vorga again.
Does he know?
He never knows. I live my own private life.
He could not take his eyes off her, and yet it hurt him to look at her. He was yearning and hating, yearning for the reality to be undone, hating the truth for what it was. He discovered that he was stroking her handkerchief with tremulous fingers.
I love you, Olivia.
I love you, Gully, my enemy.
For God's sake, why did you do it? You were aboard Vorga running the ref racket. You gave the order to scuttle them. You gave the order to pass me by. Why? Why?
What? Are you demanding apologies?
I'm demanding an explanation.
You'll get none from me.
Blood and money, your father said. He was right. Oh, bitch, bitch, bitch.
Blood and money, yes, and unashamed.
I'm drowning, Olivia. Throw me a lifeline.
Then drown. Nobody ever saved me. No, no. This is wrong. All wrong. Wait, my dear, wait.
She composed herself and began speaking very tenderly.
I could lie, Gully dear, and make you believe it. But I'm going to be honest. There's a simple explanation. I live my own private life. We all do. You do.
What's yours?
No different from yours. from the rest of the world. I cheat, I lie, I destroy, like all of us. I'm criminal, like all of us.
Why? For money? You don't need money. For control? Power?
Not for power.
Then why?
She took a deep breath as though this truth was the first truth and was crucifying her.
For hatred, to pay you back, all of you.
For what?
For being blind, for being cheated, for being helpless. They should have killed me when I was born. Do you know what it's like to be blind? To receive life second-hand? To be dependent, begging, crippled? Bring them down to your level, I told my secret life. If you're blind, make them blinder. If you're helpless, cripple them. Pay them back, all of them.
Olivia, you're insane.
End of episode 14.